So don't dismiss me like that. That's not fair. That's not fair. I deserve better than that. You and Derek Chisora, who asked me to stop training you, hence why me and you parted. Yeah, now he's with you, one of the cheerleaders, Chisora this is. If you know what these people have done to me, yeah, shameful. And all I've done for all of them is of good, yeah?
Don Charles' aggression shows the depth of his disappointment. For nearly 2 years, he shaped Dubois, guiding him through 8 crucial fights. Yet Daniel measured that bond only in money, showing no appreciation for the man who crafted his rise. This wasn't about finance, it was about respect denied.
Shaking it off.
That's their opinion, that's what they're seeing, that's what they want to say. Who am I to tell them that they're on, how can I put it, conclusion to that?
Don Charles' fury is justified. Dubois calling him bad luck is pure disrespect. This is the same trainer who gave him 7 career wins, built his style, and stood with him under pressure. Instead of loyalty, Daniel blamed him. It's not bad luck, it's a fighter avoiding responsibility.
I'd like to thank Don Charles for the hard work and effort he's put into me over the last 18 months. But now, I feel like I need a fresh change and a new start for this next phase of my career, where I look to become 2-time heavyweight champion of the world. God bless.
Joseph Parker's surprise echoes what fans already feel. Dubois badly mistreated Don Charles. After investing years of hard work, Don was cast aside without gratitude. Charles' anger is more than personal, it's about principle. He gave Daniel structure, but Daniel gave him betrayal. No wonder Don speaks with venom.
A little thing can throw you off track.
That is not a little thing.
Could you imagine, can you
That's what I'm
imagine
asking
going
you.
through that?
Yeah.
No.
And the
No.
problem is, it's coming from someone that he looks out of the ring. When they're talking, it's coming from his dad. Obviously, I've trained with him. His dad's a huge part of his life. So that is obviously going to be disruptive.
Are you surprised by this, John?
I am very surprised. I'm shocked.
Johnny Nelson exposes the deeper issue. Dubois' camp was never Don Charles' ship to steer. With Daniel's father meddling, Don's authority was undercut. Yet even in those conditions, Don delivered win. That's why his anger now is so raw. He was shackled, still performed, and then discarded disgracefully.
I don't think Don was a captain of that ship. I think the captain of the ship was the dad. So now, whoever Daniel goes to, it needs to be a strong coach to say, Dad, out. I'm training you. You hired me to train your son. That's my job. You don't come and mess up my work. I don't think Don was strong enough or in a position enough to say that. So let's see in a year's time.
Sam Jones admits Don Charles did a fantastic job, and that's undeniable. Don's hard graft carried Dubois through vital fights, but instead of credit, he got cast away. Don's rage isn't just bitterness. It's a demand for recognition. He shaped Daniel, yet Daniel treated him like a disposable tool.
Let's just put out a statement out in regards to his situation with Don Charles. Don Charles has done a fantastic job for Daniel, but Daniel's decided that he needed a change, and that's what's happened.
Dominic Ingle nails it. Fighters exploit trainers, then throw them under the bus. That's exactly Don Charles' story with Dubois. Don gave him wins, a platform, and belief. In return, he got abuse and blame. Don's fury is justified. Daniel treated him badly with zero loyalty or gratitude.
Choose you, fighters, choose you. Then they use you to get where they need to be. Then they accuse you when everything goes wrong. And when they've left and gone somewhere else, then they start to abuse you by doing interviews slagging you off.
Ben Davison gives a polite assessment of Tony Sims stepping in, but let's get real. No trainer in the world knows Daniel Dubois like Don Charles did. Don spent nearly 2 years studying his fighter inside out, his jab mechanics, defensive flaws, and mental habits. This wasn't just pad work, this was mentorship, built on hours of graft, and yet, instead of cherishing that relationship, Dubois treated it as replaceable, something to discard the moment adversity struck. Don's fury isn't about losing a job, it's about being betrayed after shaping a fighter's identity. You can parachute in Tony Sims or Ben Davison or anyone else, but what happens when Dubois faces pressure again? Don already proved his worth by guiding him to 7 wins in 8 fights. The truth is simple, you can't replace loyalty with convenience, and Daniel is about to find out the hard way.
Tony will have his own ideas, you know.
I'm not sure, but I'm sure, you know, he'll have some ideas of what he'd like to implement with Daniel. He's an experienced guy, worked with heavyweights before, a lot of time with AJ and that, so.
Dominic Ingle couldn't be clearer. Blaming trainers is a cycle, and Dubois is trapped in it. Right now, he and his supporters are convinced that sacking Don Charles solves everything. But boxing doesn't work like that. At some point, every fighter has to face the mirror and admit the fault lies with me. Don Charles already proved his credentials. 7 wins out of 8, building Daniel from prospect to contender. But instead of valuing that, Dubois threw him aside, hoping a new coach would magically erase his flaws. That's not how champions are made. Don's rage comes from watching a young fighter run from responsibility. Trainers can refine, guide, and prepare, but they can't fight heart into a man. Until Dubois accepts that truth, he'll keep pointing fingers, and Don Charles will remain the scapegoat. It's a disgrace, and Don has every right to be angry.
Once you start beating guys of that level, you're there or thereabouts for the world title fights. And I think our goal this time next year would be to be boxing for a world title.
And the thing is with like British or European title fights, even if a fighter is that good, they're still belts you kind of want on the mantelpiece, right? They're still belts that you can appreciate even if they are stepping stones in quotes as such.
David Haye tries to rationalize it, saying maybe things went stale, but in truth, this wasn't about staleness. This was about scapegoating. Don Charles gave Dubois consistency, structure, and belief. He wasn't just holding pads, he was building a fighter's mentality and keeping him competitive on big stages. Let's not forget, under Don's watch, Dubois was winning. The defeats came against world-class opposition. Instead of appreciating that, Daniel chose to blame Don and ditch him. That's why Don's anger burned so deep. After pouring energy into Daniel's career, he wasn't respected, only discarded. If Dubois truly lost confidence in Don, it says more about Daniel's insecurity than Don's methods. Coaches don't suddenly forget how to train. Fighters lose the will to listen. And right now, Dubois looks like a man who doesn't want guidance, only excuses. That's what makes Don's fury feel so justified and so raw.
You know, a lot of fighters after they have a loss want to sort of jump to a different coach. Maybe thinks things have got stale. You know, maybe wants to change, and I hope he finds what he's looking for. Obviously, Don wasn't. He lost confidence in what he was bringing to the table. So hopefully, whoever he works with, he gets that additional confidence because he's got a great ability.
Amir Khan talks about fresh starts, but that logic only works when the issue lies in the training camp. With Dubois, the issue isn't the trainer, it's the fighter himself. Don Charles guided him through 7 victories, shaped his fundamentals, and stood by him in pressure situations. If Dubois still crumbled under fire, that's not Don's failure, that's Daniel's lack of steel. Khan mentions confidence, but Don was the man who built Dubois' confidence from scratch. Without him, Daniel was just raw power without discipline. Don's fury now is completely justified. He gave time, belief, and experience, but Daniel showed no appreciation, only disrespect. The truth is, no new voice in his ear will change the fact that Dubois hasn't owned up to his shortcomings. Don's dismissal wasn't about development, it was about a fighter running away from accountability.
Maybe there was something I wasn't happy with in that camp. And as a fighter, some fighters have to do that. Maybe he needs that fresh start again. He needs someone new in his ear. Someone to push him to get that confidence back as well. When you hear it from a different trainer and you hear that you're doing great and you're a great fighter and you're back on top again, that confidence makes a big difference. You know what I mean? Knowing that.
Gareth A. Davies hits the nail on the head. Don Charles did absolutely nothing wrong against Usyk. That fight was about Usyk's brilliance, not Don's failure. How can you blame a coach when your fighter is in with a generational technician, one of the best heavyweights of this era? Don had Dubois prepared, but preparation only takes you so far against elite talent. And yet, instead of owning the loss, Daniel and his camp chose the easy route. Blame the trainer. That's what has Don seething with anger. He put in the work, managed a solid camp, and stood by his fighter, only to be treated as the fall guy. Dubois' attitude reveals immaturity. Rather than respect the man who crafted his style, he cut him loose. Don's rage is righteous. He wasn't sacked for failure. He was sacrificed for excuses.
Don Charles, you know, it's a shame that he's got the chop. I thought he was very good for Daniel Dubois. He didn't do anything wrong in that contest with Alexander Usyk. It was Dubois' performance. I thought, again, it was down to Usyk's brilliance on the night.
Paul Smith highlights what many have whispered for years. Dubois lacks the grit when the going gets tough. That's not something Don Charles can manufacture in a gym. Don gave him structured discipline and 7 victories in 8 fights, but the will to fight through adversity has to come from within. Don's anger isn't because of one bad performance, it's because he invested himself in a fighter who simply didn't value him. Instead of admitting his own shortcomings, Dubois has turned his back on the man who stood in his corner through highs and lows. That's betrayal at its core. Don's rage now reflects years of loyalty wasted on a fighter who measured everything in convenience, not commitment. Paul is right, the problem isn't coaching, it's Dubois' mentality, and Don Charles, being discarded after all that work, has every reason to voice his fury publicly.
I think it's beyond saving with him. I think whenever the fight gets hard, we've seen it proven more than once now. He doesn't seem to have that fortitude, that grit, that desire, that mentality of, you're not beating me, I'm going to stick in this, I'm going to outlast you, and that's what.
What do you mean by that?
needed.
I mean, he dug in deep against Hrgovic, didn't he?
He dug in deep against Hrgovic, but then we saw it in the Joyce fight, it wasn't there. We saw it in the first Usyk fight. I felt he could have got up. In the last fight, I felt he could have got up. As soon as the referee got to 10, he gets up and he walks back to his corner.
Duke McKenzie underlines the most painful part of this split. Don Charles knew Daniel Dubois inside out. He understood his mechanics, his mindset, and how to get the best out of him. That knowledge doesn't come overnight. It's built through countless hours in the gym and under the light. Don wasn't just a coach, he was the one who shaped Dubois' style and guided him to success. For Dubois to cast him aside at this stage shows how badly he has treated a man who gave him everything. Don's fury is rooted in this lack of appreciation. He gave Daniel structure and victories, yet Daniel measured the relationship only in short-term results. Duke calls it a bad move, and he's right. Not because Don needs Daniel, but because Daniel desperately needed Don. Cutting him off is more than betrayal. It's self-sabotage by Dubois.
The kid inside out, he knows how he works. He knows all the mechanics behind that kid and how to motivate and get the best out of him. We've seen it. And to get rid of him now at this point, I think it's a bad move.
I agree with you.
I think anyone that's going to work with Dubois, obviously no secret. I don't know his dad. I've never met his dad, but it's obviously no secret that his dad is a heavily influential person in the camp, in the team, and.
At this point, the story is crystal clear. Don Charles was never valued the way he should have been. For nearly 2 years, he gave everything to Daniel Dubois: strategy, technical improvements, and above all, belief. He guided Dubois to 7 wins and 8 fights, built his reputation as a heavyweight contender, and stood by him even when critics doubted. And how did Dubois repay that? By treating Don like he was replaceable, a tool to be used and discarded, rather than a mentor to be respected. Don's anger, his raw fury, comes from betrayal. Not because of the money, not because of contracts, but because Dubois measured their bond purely in convenience. The moment things got tough, Daniel abandoned him. That's why Don is raging today. He knows he invested his heart and soul in a fighter who never truly appreciated it. The saddest truth is this: trainers like Don Charles don't just teach punches, they build career. Daniel might think a new voice will save him, but when the heat rises again, he'll realize what he lost. Don was more than a coach, he was the foundation, and Dubois has broken that bond forever.